Okay, I am going to record on the cloud, I think. Or do I? Yeah, record on the cloud. That's what I did the last time. All right, Susan, whenever you are ready.
Okay. Welcome to Committee of the Whole virtual meeting for May 25th, 2020. We'll call the meeting to order. Approval of agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, I was wondering if we could move number 10, which is the Stellarton Town Hall renovation and addition estimate up to number 6 after Pictou County Pizza Day.
Fine.
And I also want to make note that the next meeting date is not May 25th, it is June 22nd. So those are the only things that I had for the agenda.
Okay. Thank you. Can we have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So move.
I'll second that.
Moved by Councillor Pence, second by Councillor Knight. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed. Approval, a motion, could I have a motion for approval of the previous minutes?
Deputy Mayor, I want to point something out in the minutes. The on the where it talks about where I'm supposed to interview the students, I think there was a mistake there. In fact, what I said was I interviewed the students for the recreation, not for the community in Blooms. They were going to do that themselves as usual. Can you correct that, please?
Okay. Come date. I'm just trying to find that here, Brian.
That's all right. Just write it in. Susan will.
Yeah, it's under the summer student status, so I'll make sure that I have that fixed for the next meeting.
Okay, great. After those corrections to the previous minutes,
Yeah,
could
I'll move. So move with Deputy Mayor with the corrections.
And I'll second.
Okay, moved by Councillor Knight, second by Councillor Lalonde. All in favor?
Aye.
Business arising from the minutes? I don't think there's any. Okay. Next on the agenda is the Pictou County Pizza Day. Would Mayor McGilvery like to speak on that?
I think the clerk has a write-up that we wanted to read off. I'll make the motion once it's read.
Okay. Alice of Alice's Pizza passed away on May 16th. And Alice and the pizza that her family brought to Pictou County from Greece many years ago has had a huge impact on the people of Pictou County. So much so that we have taken ownership of it and now call it our world famous Pictou County Pizza. When you think of Pictou County, you think of our beautiful landscape, our people, and our pizza. Alice and her family have been a huge part of promoting Pictou County in a positive light for decades. In recognition of Alice and her family's pioneering role in bringing the pizza we all love to Pictou County, we hereby declare May 16th as Pictou County Pizza Day in the town of Stellarton. So that will begin in 2021.
Thank you, and I'll make the motion to approve that.
I'll second that.
I second it.
Okay, moved by Mayor McGilvery and seconded by Gary Pence to designate May 16, 2021 as Pictou County Pizza Day. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. So next we're going to have a presentation by Dale Archibald speaking on the Stellarton Town Hall renovation and addition. Go ahead, Dale.
Okay, I believe you quoted in the agenda that we were going to speak about the construction estimates.
Yes.
Did you want me to run through just the highlights of the report first?
Yes, please.
Okay, I assume everybody has had an opportunity to read through the report. So I'll just kind of hit on the highlights of it. This is the second time I've been involved with a Zoom meeting. First time was with my kids on my recent birthday. I got children spread across the country. So I don't know if there's going to be a point in the future, whether by June 22nd, your next meeting, there will be a chance to meet face to face, which I think would be much more effective than a Zoom meeting for what we're doing here. Although I guess the council there is getting probably fairly adept at having Zoom meetings. So you've got a very nice building there, your town hall, which was designed as a town hall back in the 1930s by a well-known Nova Scotia architect. Towns like where I live in Antigonish, they adopted buildings. The former post office here in town has become the town office, which seems to be not an uncommon thing to do. But you've got a purpose-made design building, which was in its day, I'm sure, was a top-of-the-line quality building. And likewise, the bank next door, which was another top quality, made of solid, durable materials, and the building meant to last whereas a lot of buildings that seem to be getting built today just don't seem to be built to last. Like they throw away schools now in 30 or 40 years, which seems to be an incredible waste. So your building was built solidly. The library building or the bank building was built as a nice, solid, long-term building. Although it's certainly out of date and it needs considerable work to bring it up to scratch. So what we were charged with was making the building much more accessible, to deal with the safety of the staff that work in the building and the functionality of the building. Hi, Blaine.
Hi. Sorry for being late. Just in
No
the cars.
problem. So we looked at a number of concepts of how at first the two buildings could perhaps work together to provide a more functional and accessible facility for the uses of the town. And we went through a couple of concepts where that interstitial space, the space between the two buildings, could be used for circulation that would join the two buildings. And the first concept that we had, we were suggesting that an elevator could go in that space. And because the only way to join those two spaces would be what's called a two-way elevator, an elevator with two doors, because the four floor levels between the two buildings, 2 in one and 2 in the other, they don't line up. So the main level of the town hall is 2'9" higher than the main level of the library. And then the upper floors, there's a foot difference in the levels of the upper floors. Plus, just getting in the front doors of both of those buildings is a challenge. And it's a challenge for somebody that's elderly, that's got a walker, or somebody that's got a wheelchair, trying to get in. Once you get in the front door of the town hall, you're not free to wheel at that point. You still, as soon as you're inside the door, there's 4 risers inside the building. So even if we can get a ramp on the exterior that gets you to the front door, once you get in that front door, you can't get to the main floor level because there's a small landing area there and then 4 more steps up to the main level. A ramp at some point was put in front of the bank building, a very nice ramp actually, with a stone wall around it, etc. It ties in nicely with the architecture of the building. Although it doesn't quite meet code, there are some turning circle issues at the top right in front of the main door. So in order to tie these two buildings together, if they were at one level, you could just make almost like a bridge across or a corridor that would connect one to the other. But because of the level differences and accessibility, being public buildings, they had to be fully accessible so that somebody that is in a wheelchair can easily get in the building and then be able to access the different spaces within that building. And it's the code recognizes that somebody with a wheelchair shouldn't have to take a special path in order to get into the building. They should be able to access the building where a normally able-bodied person would get in. So it's not on to have someone go around to a side door or a back door to access your building where the majority of the population is coming in the front door. So in order to create a common entrance there, we had to put a fairly substantial ramp to get us up to a level to get us into a common lobby between the two buildings. And that lobby would line up with the main floor level of the town hall. And then you would go into an elevator and then in the front door, and then to get to the main level of the library, you'd go down 2'9" and come out the back door, and then you're in the library. Or else you go up and then you could come out the front door, so to speak. You could be in the main level of the town hall, or if you adjusted a foot and went out the back door, you'd be on the upper level of the library. So it is possible that you could access both buildings from a common entry, but it takes a lot of work with the ramp outside, this two-way elevator and lobbies on both sides of it. And whether you really gain anything by that, is it worth it to do that exercise? There's some other issues around the whole building. The National Building Code has requirements that pertain to the building. The fact that you've got a police station that has detention cells in it, that's the most restrictive occupancy that you have in your building. You've got 3 occupancies in your building. You've got the police station, which is a B1 occupancy. You've got a group D, which is offices, and then you've got a group A, assembly. Your council chambers is really an assembly space or a gathering space where you have 30, on occasion, maybe 30 or 40 or 50 people in there. You also have some quite large meeting rooms on the upper level, which could hold quite a number of people. So your building needs to be separated from the police station, because it's an occupancy that sometimes it creates possibly a threat to the other users in the building. But also because people are incarcerated there in cells, they have to be safe as well. So if there's a fire in another part of the building, say in the council chambers or whatever, there has to be some protection to allow the folks that are in the cell area and the police to be able to safely egress from the building. So the National Building Code looks at your building from the most restrictive point of view, which is the police department. And that has to be rated, and that really requires that your whole building be sprinkled, have a sprinkler system or a fire protection system. It currently doesn't have that. It only has it in the area where the cell area and some of the auxiliary spaces that support that. So those are some of the things to deal with. Other big issues there is you've only got one stair, essentially, from the main level to the upper level, and that's that grand curving stair, but it's wide open from the main level to the upper level. So if there was some kind of an incident on the main level where there's a fire started for whatever reason, then all the smoke from that fire just goes right up that stair and then contaminates and fills the upper corridors of the building, or the fire quickly can spread up to the upper level. National Building Code likes to have these floor-to-floor separations so that smoke doesn't travel easily from one level to another. So that stair has to be enclosed. Because this is a historic building, there are probably ways to do it, and there had to be a negotiation with the authorities having jurisdiction as how we do that, so that we just don't ruin that stair. The other thing is there's not really a safe second way out of that building. There are fire escapes there, which they do provide a way out for an able-bodied person, but they're not very safe. First of all, to get on the fire escape, you have to climb up over a radiator out through a window to get to them. It's not easily accessible. And then when you're out there, they're very narrow and extremely steep. And if there's snow or rain on those stairs, they're extremely dangerous. They do provide a way out. I'm sure it's better than having to jump from an upper story, but it's still, in an emergency situation, they could be very, very dangerous. So those are the fire separations should be dealt with. The exiting should be dealt with. And that's without even looking at the functionality of how the building works. The first was trying to, the first concept was trying to have everybody come in a common entrance at the front of the building. And that would include everybody, including those folks in wheelchairs or with walkers. But one of the negatives about that is there's no barrier-free parking. Like, so someone arrives and they have a wheelchair, they have to park at the rear of the building and get their wheelchair out, get in their wheelchair and go all the way around the building and then go up this new ramp into this new elevator lobby or new main entry lobby in order to get into the building. So that was our first concept. And so from that, because all the parking's at the rear of the building, we looked at maybe putting an entrance, concept 2, at the rear end of the building with this common new stair that would provide the safe second exit from the upper levels. And so that lobby there would also have this two-way elevator which would allow you to access both the library and the town hall. The negative thing about that is you're coming in the rear end of the building and you're far from the reception desk, etc., that now exists near the front of the building. Likewise, same thing in the library. You're coming in at the rear end of the library where the main desk for the library, the circulation desk, is adjacent to the front door. So like in terms of the town hall, then you have to turn the whole floor around, so to speak. And then if that's going to become the main entry of the building, what's going to happen to the other entry of the building? Are you just going to lock that off? So having this works from a point of view of accessibility coming from the parking lot, but in terms of the functionality of the building, I don't think it's really the right answer. So we went on from that. We had a look at what if we move the police department? They're very constrained in their spaces. I don't know. I'm sure you've all been through their spaces to see what it's like. They've got some really tiny spaces in there that people are working in, and some of those spaces, you're there with somebody that's there that doesn't want to be there, and you're in a tiny little space and trying to administer a breathalyzer or take information or whatever, and or interview them, whatever it is, and it's very, very, very contained. All those spaces, the circulation is just at a minimum in those areas. There's almost no storage. So we looked at the say if in the big picture, if we use the library and move some of the police facilities over there, they certainly could move some of them over there, but you end up essentially you've split the department. The connection between the two buildings is not convenient. It's not easy. You go through an elevator, you're going through stairs and lobbies, and I don't think you're not going to move the cell area. It's going to stay where it is, and oftentimes the guys that are looking after the cells, they trade off with maybe the dispatcher there they have to go do something else, and someone has to have an overlook on it, and those folks are somewhere else in the building. It doesn't work. And there are activities in there that sometimes you need support of your fellow workers, and they got to be close by. So everybody's got to be aware in the police department of what's happening. So it didn't seem right to me to split the police department essentially in two and move half of them over into what was the library. And then you've got the council then's got to say, well, now we got to find a place for the library. So we evolved into the final, after meeting with the police chief essentially and the group there, the planning committee, we came to realize that the real problem here is seemingly there's not enough space for the police department. They're very constrained. There's seemingly enough space for the town administration. Even the problem with the town administration, it's on 2 levels. So what evolved was that perhaps since the council chambers, the engineering department's already on the upper level, and there's essentially spare space up there. You got meeting rooms up there. Why not move your front desk and your tax office, your clerk up to the upper level, and that would free up the whole main level to give the police department a little more space. And then that wasn't quite enough space for their needs. One of their big deficiencies is they don't have a sally port. So if they pick somebody up that's been up to no good and they're trying to get him into the cell, they basically had to pull into the parking lot at the back of the building, get the individual out of the back of their car and try to get him into the building and into the police cells. The way it normally works is there's a thing called a sally port where you actually drive inside, door shuts, they're in an enclosed space, and then it's much safer then to transfer somebody out of the vehicle and then into the cell area. So then that precipitated us looking at putting an addition on the back of the building. It's a sally port with 2 bays where 2 cars could be there at one time, and then some support spaces for, could be training room, could be locker rooms, exercise room, that kind of thing. And then we tried to work as much with the existing spaces left on the main floor to improve the functionality of the police department as much as we could. There would still be a main entrance. The existing main entrance of the building would stay as the main entrance to the town administration building. But the main floor would be pretty well put over to the police department. The upper floor would be put over as the town administration. You still need a big ramp to get you up to the main level. We'd have to, that inner landing that's 4 risers down from the main level, we would take that out. We'd move the new door, you're replacing your door and probably that whole portico, at least the posts and everything, so that when you come in the door of the building, you're at the main level of the building. So you'd still come into that existing lobby, but there would be some glass partitions there that would separate that lobby from the police department. And then the stair that goes up, the nice grand staircase would have to be separated by a glazed partition that's fire rated. And then you could go through that partition, go up the stairs, up to town administration, or else we suggest you put an elevator in, so when you come in the main door, you can hop in an elevator, it'll take you up to the upper level. And then it lands you upstairs in a lobby, which would be the town hall lobby, would also act as a space where the public can gather prior to going into the meeting within the town hall or the town council chambers proper. Or afterwards, that's where the citizens come out and lobby the councilors on issues that were being discussed at meetings. So that's where we think this should go, is that the main floor gets turned over to the police department. It would improve their situation somewhat, but it's not going to answer all their issues. We have within our report, we did what's called a building program or a functional space program, and that goes through the list of spaces, not only for the town hall, but for the police department, and it identifies what their different functions are and what their square footage area requirements are. And that if you add it up for the police department, if this was a new building, you'd probably be building them a 7,000 or 8,000 square foot building. And we just don't have that space for that. We got about around 4,000 square feet on that main level, plus we're adding another 2,000 square feet for a sally port, etc. So is that too much information, or any questions at this point?
Yes, about the sally port, is that a absolute requirement by the code, or is that a nice to have?
I don't think it's not by the code, if you mean the National Building Code. No, it's not. But I would think it's common practice amongst police facilities that they would have sally ports. And it's a way that they've picked somebody up, they got them in their car, and it's where they can take them to a contained, safe area, connect it to the building, and then transfer them into the spaces within the building.
So if we took a look, for example, at the RCMP here in Stellarton, do they have a sally port?
I'm not familiar with their facility
No.
here.
No, they don't.
No,
What
they
about the New Glasgow Police?
haven't. No.
And this is a fairly newer building, correct?
Yeah, I can't answer. I'm not familiar with the New Glasgow facility either.
Okay. So for the elevator, you said that there's a 1.5 meter or feet elevation differences between the library floor and the
The
second
main
floor.
floor of the library and the main floor of the town hall, the 2'9" difference.
So how will you kind of level them out so that, and I'm trying to understand this, where if you go up one floor and this is a little bit shorter, do you have like a ramp up
No.
or down? No?
No, I don't know if you've ever been in a two-door library or
Two-door, yes, I have
two-door
been, but both
elevator.
of them would, but
like
both of them would be on
sometimes
the
in
same level.
hospitals, you get in an elevator, there's a door on either end,
Yeah,
and that allows you to go into service areas on one end. So you get in a door on one end, and then that elevator goes, say, in this case, if you were in the town hall and you wanted to go into the library, you'd get in
goes
this
up one
elevator,
foot.
it would go down 2'9". It would drop 33 inches, and
Okay.
the other door would open, and you would come out at that level.
No, understood.
If you were going to put a ramp in, you'd need a ramp 33 feet long for that 33 inches.
Understood.
And-
That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
All the two-door elevator that I've been in, we're on the same kind of level. I've never seen. So that's why I was wondering about that.
Yeah,
So
that's why,
it's
because if you try to, you can't do it all at one door, because you go down and you open the door and there's another floor. It's 2'9" in the air. So you can't exit. It doesn't work. It has to be, you go in one side, you have to come out at the other side at a different level, because you're only going a partial floor.
Yes, understood. Thank you. So that elevator is, will it also take you to the main level of the library, or is it just for the second level of the library?
No, it'll take you to all floors within the two buildings.
Well, there's only second
So
floor,
you
right?
could come into that elevator and go up to the upper floor of the town hall, or then you go down a foot and then go out the other door, and then you're at the same level as the upper level of the library, or you can go all the way down and come out at the level of the library.
I'm confused. So when you go into the elevator,
Yes,
how far off the ground the elevator is going to be?
the main stop on the elevator, if we could call it that, is at the main level of the town hall.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. So
Yeah.
you only go up one floor, because we only have one floor up.
Yeah, so then you, just
Okay.
like a normal elevator in a two-story building, you hit the
Yeah.
button for 2, you go up, and you come out that door, and you're on the upper level of the town hall. But
Okay.
if you want to get to the level of the library, upper level, you have to go back in the elevator and press a button for that level. And the
Yeah.
door that you came in doesn't open. The other door opens because the elevator just dropped a foot to line up with that level.
Understood.
And
So
if you want to
that's,
hit library level 1, you hit that and you go down and you're at that lower level. It's actually the library level is 2'9" below the town hall level.
okay, thank you, understood. So that space between the town hall and the library, will all of it be enclosed, or just a lobby and then an elevator, or I'm just trying to envision it.
I think the current option doesn't involve the library at all.
Okay,
It's just the renovation of the town hall. So basically, because of those challenges that he mentioned, police department occupy the entire downstairs, the first floor of the town hall, and all administration and everybody else will be moved upstairs.
So that's the option that we're considering then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, well, that makes it a lot
option 4,
easier.
which seems to be the optimum solution, does not give any consideration to the library. It just didn't seem that we were gaining that much by encompassing or joining the library.
Okay, perfect. So at that point then, if I'm assuming correctly, and Susan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because the library is a public building and the second floor is considered to be part of the library, if we don't have a elevator or some way to access it from accessibility standpoint, then we will have to shut it down, correct?
Well, it would depend on if the second floor is public access or not, or if it's just accessible to the staff. So there are different levels of accessibility that we would have to accommodate, and we would have 10 years to do that.
Yeah, the library is the library is an existing building that, and I believe the upstairs is not connected to the library. It doesn't have anything to do with the library right now.
No, at this time, the second floor of the library is Dream Candy.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly if you were going to renovate the library at the same time and bring it into the town hall, and that area, those areas on the second floor are going to be used by the public, you would have to provide public access.
That is correct.
And
Would it be,
as a town hall, representing your community, you'd certainly want to have leadership and be able to show that you're working for your citizens and making all your facilities accessible.
Yes.
That is the aim. That is correct. That's why you're presenting this to us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any more questions?
just on the, in future, if we wanted to have access to the top of the library, would the national code allow us to put a corridor on the second floor from one building to the other?
Oh, yes, you could connect it. It's a 1 foot, there's 1 foot elevation difference. You could like say, put a bridge across, as long as, and it could be ramped so that it takes up that 1 foot difference.
So it will be stayed on an angle then?
Yeah.
That would solve the problem.
Yeah, there's a lot of ifs and maybes and options here, and you just have to, that would become another factor in a whole determination whether it's worth it to what you gain by doing that. So,
okay.
But it's done in other buildings. You quite often you see in Halifax now, or you see it certainly in Calgary's got them all over the place. They call them +15s, where on the second level they have bridges that go across roads to connect buildings, because you don't want to be going outside in the wintertime. And there's certain buildings in Halifax have that. So it would just be a small bridge across there. It's 8 or 9 feet across that interstitial space between the two buildings. So that could happen. Right now, that upper floor is small enough. There's one exit out of that building, or means of egress, and that is suitable for that occupancy that is there. It's small enough. The building, if it was very much larger, you'd need 2 exits, but because of the size of it, you can get away with 1 exit. But if we put this bridge in, then that makes it even safer, because that's a second exit. That means you could exit out of that. If there was a fire in that building, you could exit out of it, across this bridge into the town hall, and then get in the exits out of the town hall.
Okay. Any more questions?
Yes, Chair, I wonder, the front ramp you talked about, Dale, what would it look like? Would it be like a switchback ramp, or would it be like just steps going up, or how would it look?
Yeah, no, because of the length of it, I think it's close to 60 feet in travel distance. It's a switchback. It had to be a switchback.
Yeah,
It's the only way to get it in. And then it allows a little space between it and the sidewalk for some green space, some shrubbery. You have some nice shrubs out in front of your town hall right now. You'd have a whole new stairway because instead of coming up 6 risers to the threshold of the door, you'd have to come up something like 10 risers to get to the main level because of the 4 risers inside, which we eliminated.
Okay.
So that
Do you
would
know
all
what-
had to be rebuilt, and that could be done like, not unlike they did over in front of the library. They did a really nice stone. I'm not suggesting that it has to be stone, but it's something that's very tastefully done that fits with the style of your building, and you know, and it's part of your town infrastructure.
Thank you. Do you know what the outstanding issues for the police will be if they had the, you said there'd be still not quite enough room. Do you know what the outstanding issues would be, or would that be more a question for the chief?
Could you repeat that, please?
You were saying how even if the police have the entire first floor is still not quite enough room for them? Do you
Yeah,
know what?
some of the spaces in there are really small little spaces, like, you know, 7 by 8 spaces and 9 by 10. They're just really too small to be used properly.
Yes, I fully agree with that. I've seen them.
Yeah, no, you know, this is just a concept and trying to work with what's there as much as possible. The next phase, the detailed design, you'd have to get right into the needs of what these spaces are, what furniture is going to be in them, how they're going to be used, how many people are going to be in them, and then that helps to determine what size they need to be. We tried to work within the spaces that are there, and which is always an objective when you're working with an existing building. You don't want to start knocking down walls and move them over a foot or 2 just to make them more functional. If you can work within those spaces that are there, that's the objective. So that would be the next phase, when you really get into the detailed design of how these spaces work and what the requirements or their needs are.
So you're saying that they would require mostly around 7,000 or 8,000 square feet if you're going to build it new, and we're
Well,
going to be
Well,
4,000 plus the
if you
salary
look at
port?
our report, we have the functional space program, and that's what the bottom line comes out to be. And some of that may be a wish list that in sitting down with the people on the chief and whoever else is would be involved, and have to go through that in detail and see actually what those needs are, and see who's going to work in these spaces, and you know what do they need to effectively function in those spaces.
That makes sense. Thank you.
You know, like we have an exercise room there shown there, but that's a nice to have. Maybe you don't need that. Or maybe as someone asked, you know, your question, the Sally port, maybe the Sally port only has to be 1 bay. You know, those things all have a big determinant on how it turns out.
And cost.
But you also, you want people to be able to effectively do their job as well. So
Yeah.
you want to get it right.
So that's my next question, I guess. Yes, we want people to do it right, and regulations are always changing. And I'm wondering, Susan, between you and the chief, if you would be able to maybe inquire with the provincial government or whatever, to see if there's any thoughts on the horizon on requirement changes. So if we know that in 5 or 6 years time or 10 years time, they're going to require us that there's not less than 7,000 square feet, then we know that right now, even if we move them to the full first level, it's still going to be obsolete in 6 to 10 years. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's quite possible. Particularly, you're working with an existing building, and there's not a lot of room to expand here. This has got 4 hard walls, and you can't just stretch these spaces very much. You got the cells in the middle of it, which are very rigid, and then you got circulation on both sides of it, which you need, and then that pretty well determines what's left over. You got that main stairwell in the middle, that's, you don't want to move that. Yeah, it's going to have to be carefully studied to first of all, determine what the real needs of the police department are. This go around with this functional space program that the chief developed is the first iteration of an exercise that certainly is going to have to be looked at again in detail. And as the further you get into this, the more you know about these spaces and what the requirements are, and then therefore you can make a better judgment as to what the size of these spaces should be.
Okay.
One last question.
Sure.
No, that'll be for Susan, our clerk. Will you be posting all of the analysis and the frame of work on our site for public knowledge?
Right now, the Stellarton, the preliminary is just a draft, so we wouldn't post that. But anyway, between Blaine and I, we can certainly discuss what can be posted.
Okay, thank you.
Just one more comment. Sorry, Chair. One more comment is that if we connect the two buildings with the like a bridge like you talked about, that would still be a different entrance for someone in a wheelchair than with the normal entrance to the second floor of the library. So I'm not sure that would fit the code either.
Well, if you were going to connect the upper level with a bridge from the town hall, somebody in a wheelchair would have to get to that second level of the town hall. And that may, if there was an elevator put in, then that would give them access to the second level. Then they could wheel across this bridge to the upper level of the library if that was where they were headed. So,
but it would be a different entrance than an able-bodied person would use.
Well, no, well, maybe, you know, you actually don't need space on the upper level. It's the police department. I think there is enough space on that upper level for the needs of the town hall. Haven't just captured by putting a bridge across there, say where that vault is that's shown in the drawing that's on the scheme next to the clerk's office, take that vault out and put a bridge across there. You have access to whatever that floor level is. I think it's maybe 1,500 square feet or 1,300 square feet. But
I guess my point is,
who needs to use that space? It's not of much use to the police department. And there seems to be enough space for the needs of the town hall already on the upper level, but it is possible to do it.
Yeah,
but anybody else getting there, if that space was supporting the activities of the town hall, then you would want them to come through the town hall before they went into that space and then report in at the reception desk so that you control the flow of people within your building. You don't want people coming in the back stair or a back entry. You want everybody coming into a common point and then stating their business and then being directed to the business. Like Blaine doesn't like people just appearing at his door without an appointment, asking him questions. You want to have control. In this day and age, you want to have control how people come into the building and who they go see. And that's certainly critical for a police department. And now it seems to be more critical for administrations like your own. We actually designed the county office here in Antigonish for the municipality, County of Antigonish. And over the last 2 years, they've taken some measures at their tax desk, they call it, and their reception desk, where they put up some glass partitions there, not unlike you see in provincial offices now. So just to help to give some security to the staff there from the public side of the building. And when that building first opened, there's a set of doors that allow people from the main lobby just to freewheel through the whole building. And they now keep those doors closed and locked, and you had to come in and state your business before you go down the road to see the deputy clerk or whoever, or the building inspector, or whoever you're going to go see. So I think you're going to want to do. That's why we've shown that town hall lobby on the upper level. That's kind of it's a contained area. So when you arrive there out of the elevator, you speak to the people at the reception counter and state your business, whether you're there to pay a bill, you just pay your bill and then you're back on the elevator and you're gone. If you wanted to see the mayor or if you wanted to see the engineering department, you'd have to make an appointment or make a connection through the reception desk to be able to access the rest of the building. Likewise, on the main floor, certainly you've got to go through a controlled door to get into the police department. You go into a lobby there and then you state your business, and then if they like your looks and you have to go forward, then they buzz a door and then you're allowed in, or someone comes to open that door and invite you in for an interview or whatever it is going to happen. So.
Perfect.
Any other questions? No?
No.
Okay, thank you, Dale.
Thanks, Dale.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Dale. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Are you cutting me loose?
Yep.
We're cutting you loose.
We haven't talked about money yet.
That's why we're cutting you loose.
So what we'll do from now.
Not my fees, the estimates that were done by QS Online are quantity surveyors.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll discuss this further with council and staff and just kind of decide exactly what it is we need. We'll look at what the estimates were and we'll go from there. We'll go to the next step.
Okay, if I can just say a word on that. I think it's important that you read the whole report and not just go to the summary sheet that says it's going to cost over $3 million. This is very preliminary stage that we're at here, and this is an estimate of where this could cost if it was to go to tender and you've got bids from different contractors interested in doing this job. And this is kind of an average cost of what this could cost in the construction industry today, but it's not necessarily what the lowest tender would be. There may be somebody there that's really keen that wants to do it. He's local, whatever it is. But so also you'll find in that there's some built-in contingencies, probably $500,000 worth of contingencies, because this is a preliminary design. It's got to be designed in detail. There's things happening in markets we don't know it. COVID's got certain plants are closed down, so certain materials are no longer available, and there's going to be a backlog and maybe cost implications from that. And then we're working in an existing building or buildings, so we open up a wall and we don't know what we're going to find. We find surprises. There's rot, there's mold, there's bad wiring. We don't know all those things yet. So anyway, so I just caution you to read through the whole report, and then hopefully next time we talk, we'll have some good questions and we'll have some good answers. So
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
yeah, it was a pleasure meeting you online, and I look forward to meeting you in person at some point. So
Absolutely.
hopefully sooner rather than later. So
Right.
okay,
Okay,
All right.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, we'll move along to correspondence. Susan, do you want to?
Yes, so the first thing we have is the Health of Pictou County Funders Report for May 2020. Since December, they co-hosted site visits with 4 physicians, in addition to a group site visit with the Practice Ready Assessment Program with 6 visiting physicians. They've successfully recruited a new OBGYN and anesthesiologist, and they're supposed to arrive this summer, obviously pending the COVID. They're continuing with their retention efforts, and they've also worked on and are working on completing their Welcome Home Guide. So they're in the editing stages of that, hoping to have that printed in June. And they're very excited to share that they will be welcoming 2 additional residents to the Pictou County area through the North Nova Residency Program. So that's a report from them.
Thank you. So the next is the Pictou County 4-H.
Yeah, so I noted on the agenda that they are requesting a donation, and what they're basically doing is that they're just giving council a status update that they've suspended all in-person activities for the remainder of the 2024 H year. And so all their events will be postponed, but they just want to know that council to know that their 4-H planning is still ongoing, and that they're just as strong as ever. And they're thanking us for our previous support, and hope that they can continue to receive that support. So they're not actually requesting a donation.
Donation. Yeah. Okay.
All right, the COVID-19 and October 17, 2020 municipal elections.
Yes, so there's been a lot of correspondence going back and forth between the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities and the Provincial Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing. On April the 7th, Mayor Pam Mood, who is the president of NSFM, wrote a letter to Minister Porter. And so basically saying that municipalities have taken measures that include holding virtual meetings, revising budgets, anticipated decreased tax revenues, and they're developing new staffing plans. So the Parliamentary Budget Officer and the Conference Board of Canada have both developed scenarios where the current distancing measures remain in place until August. But even supposing that the current distancing measures are relaxed this summer, municipalities will still face serious difficulties in preparing for an October election. Obviously, enumeration is not possible. Polling stations will be hard to book, and staff and voter outreach efforts will be complicated. So it seems reasonable to expect that returning to regular operations will take many weeks, and it is hard to imagine an election running smoothly this October. It is even more difficult to envision the difficulties that would be experienced by new councils going through orientation in October, only to be plunged into budget deliberations a few short months later. So she's saying, Minister, we both agree that at the moment it is health and safety first, but now is also the time for considering options regarding the election matter that is before us. So that's from Mayor Mood to Minister Porter. On May 13th, he responded basically saying, thank you for your letter. I understand the financial and operational pressures that municipalities are facing in Nova Scotia and across Canada. I want to assure you that we have examined your request to postpone the October 2020 election carefully. As Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, I can confirm for you we will be holding the municipal elections in October 2020. I encourage municipalities to continue their preparations for an October election with the current public health protocols in mind, specifically the requirements around social distancing. With the tools and flexibilities provided in the Municipal Elections Act, I am confident municipalities can hold safe and democratic elections that conform with public health directives. As you know, there are several options for municipalities in terms of how they conduct elections and how electors can vote and how candidates campaign, such that an election can be held safely. Use the provincial and federal voting lists available through Elections Nova Scotia. Alternative voting methods for voting other than or in addition to paper ballots to give electors options for advanced polls and ordinary polling day. Voting by mail, telephone, or through a personal computing device. We will be again launching the Local Decision Nova Scotia program by Springtide Collective to help candidates and their teams with online resources relevant to running a campaign. We are working with them to tailor some materials to planning and campaigning in an environment to social distancing. Then on May 20th, a subsequent letter was sent back to the province outlining the major concerns, and I'll just briefly go through the concerns that Mayor Pam Mood had noted. Lack of consultation. The Minister of Municipal Affairs did not reach out to consult with the board of the NSFM, executive, staff, or members. The costs, challenges Minister Porter's suggestions that municipalities can easily conduct safe elections by increasing both the number of polling stations. So he's basically saying have more polling stations. Well, with that is increased costs. The democratic process, cannot knock on doors. You cannot have town hall meetings. You cannot talk to people face to face. and when voters cannot vote in a manner that is comfortable for them, especially given the pandemic. This is also a big issue that's been coming up, is that incumbents will have the upper hand because they are known. It is important that he is aware of that point, as we do not know how those new to the election process will react to this. So as you can appreciate, anyone who's new to the process, doesn't know what to do, is quite challenging. The health concerns. Several of our members have raised concerns about providing secure polling stations for the veterans and seniors in their communities. Residents could easily decide to stay home instead of exercising the democratic right on October 17th. And the economics. The first round of this pandemic is not nearly over, and we are less than 5 months out from the election. Experienced councils. NSFM also has serious concerns about putting first-time politicians in the middle of a very real and potentially worse second wave of COVID. They will be asked to restart an economy without the background on what was done and why. This is not about who they put in office. In closing, a reminder that nomination day throughout the province is in the first week of September. Should a second round of COVID come to be, or should any other factors come to light that would cause for reconsidering the election date in October, NSFM will require early and frequent consultation. There will be too much at stake. So that's that. I apologize for the lengthiness, but there was quite a bit of correspondence. So as you can tell, it's not over.
Yeah, I don't understand that decision that the provincial government has made unless they do want the polling numbers to go down to 5 or 10%. Not really sure what they're trying to accomplish here, but you know, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so next is Aberdeen Palliative Care.
Yes, so this is something new that's been received. It was received on May 1st, and as we know, there are people of all ages in our community who need our support. We recognize this request for financial support comes in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the mission of the Aberdeen Palliative Care Society is to support the provision of compassionate end-of-life care services to the community. The current pandemic and the directive for social distancing has only heightened the need for our society to continue its work. It requires about $50,000 annually in donations to support in-home palliative care. Your gift helps pay for some pieces of medical equipment and services not covered by the government. Items such as hospital beds, chairs, oxygen concentrators, and transportation costs for medical appointments. Each of us deserves to die with dignity in a peaceful environment with the best possible care available. We are asking to give generously to make this happen. Thank you for your support, Margaret Ellen Disney. She's the chair.
Okay, so do we want to make a recommendation to council to make a donation to this? Is that the way to go?
So you do have some funds left in your annual grant allocation if council chooses to do that.
I'd make the motion for $100 to Palliative Care.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Okay, update from administration. Water
So thank you. So I just wanted to give council an update on the water station that we put in place at the town square.
Yes.
So Councillor Lewan brought this up probably a year and a half, maybe close to 2 years ago. And this is now in place. It's not being used at this point because of the COVID, but as you can see here, you can just press on this button and people can fill up their water bottles. So that's something. Pleasant Street was also put on the council capital, and that's how it's looking. We're very pleased, both Blaine and I are very pleased with how that looks. So that'll be seeded and maintained and mowed. So it's quite a difference from
Yes,
Yeah.
I
again,
would say so.
and I
Yes.
know this has been a bone of contention with all of council, so it's finally
Yeah.
coming to be looking a little better there. So I don't know if there's any questions on that. Those two pictures, I was quite excited to give that update to council because it's moving forward, so that's good.
I just wanted to thank Councillor Luan for the idea for the water station. It was a good idea, and I'm glad we can make it happen. I also want to thank staff for Pleasant Street. It looks a lot better.
Yeah, I would like to thank staff and Blaine for and Public Works in general for the work. That looks 100 times better, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what we were asking for. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly does.
Definitely a lot more pleasing to the eye.
Yeah, thank you, Blaine.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
The next thing on there is the telephone and electronic voting. And I just wanted to, this is not a decision that council is making tonight. I just wanted to give an update on where that stands. So basically the way the municipal or the telephone electronic voting works in the province of Nova Scotia is whoever HRM gives the tender to or gets the tender to, all municipalities who choose to go into this arrangement has to use the same vendor. And so they just announced that IntelliVote is who the tender was awarded to. And IntelliVote is who was used in 2016. This would, if council chooses, this would be the second time that the town of Stellarton went with a telephone and electronic voting. And just as we all know, it's a good tool if the election doesn't go ahead, that for people who are concerned with the COVID-19 and accessibility issues, this will be a perfect alternative for them. So I just wanted to give council an update on that. And once costs are determined, I will bring that forth for council for their consideration.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Next, the surplus equipment tender.
Yes, so
And
council has that in their package as well, and you will notice that, I don't know if council has any questions on that. I can bring it up here.
I make a motion that we go with the highest bidders.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay.
Motion was made by Councillor Knight and seconded by Councillor Lund, I think. Was it?
Pence, I think it was.
Pence.
Yes. So,
Brian and Pence, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry.
Okay, and the other thing, this is just council's basically 7-day notice on the tax financing program policy that was introduced to you prior. So Brenda met with the other finance representatives from the other municipalities in Hector County, and it's relatively the same. The assessment numbers are a little different depending on where they stand. But the assessment for the town of Stellarton for residential is, I thought I had that here. I know the commercial is 2.5 million, so anyone that is assessed at 2.5 million will be eligible. And anyone above that, for example, hotels are automatically included in that. So I don't know if there's any questions on that, but that'll be at before council in June. So, and that's all.
Thank you. I believe that that's the end of our agenda. So the next meeting will be held on June the 22nd. Hopefully, well, we don't know. It'll probably be virtual.
Yeah, so until the until the state of emergency is lifted, we have to meet virtually. So, and that's up on Sunday. So if he extends it, then we will continue to meet virtually.
Okay. Would somebody adjourn the meeting, please?
So move.
Okay, and I am going to stop.
Thank you, Gary.